Well, in this case, there were a lot of politics to sidestep. There were record companies. My first record company.
Picture this situation. There was a lot of politics to avoid. Were music labels. Imagine this. Carly Simon stands by the ocean at her Martha's Vineyard getaway, the breeze pulling at her scarf, and memories mixing with the waves. Beneath her shining career and emotional songs is another story, one of betrayal, lack of respect for her art, and wounds that never fully healed. She hardly ever talks about them. But the anger is there, hidden between the lines, in the pauses, and buzzing under the music. These are the 6 musicians Carly Simon quietly grew to dislike, not only because of who they were, but also because of how they made her feel. The first betrayal hurt more than I expected. Linda Ronstadt. In the late 1970s, they were often seen together, driven by their voices, emotionally sincere and extremely successful. For some time, they shared stages, smiles and secrets behind the scenes. Carly truly admired Linda's strength, her ability to sing well, and her calm presence in a room. But admiration turned into heartbreak when a producer that Carly trusted unexpectedly gave a dream project to Linda. No fue solo una oportunidad perdida. It was a hard blow. Carly had invested a lot of effort into getting ready for that project. When Linda accepted it without even calling, it felt like a personal betrayal, not just a work-related one. Carly never faced her. She just walked away quietly, but she had a hurt that she would feel for many years. The betrayal wasn't in the music, but in the silence that came after. Linda nunca la amó. Carly always remembered. They ran into each other now and then, exchanging brief smiles and distant waves. The warmth had disappeared. When a journalist asked Carly about their friendship years later, she took a moment to think. Eyes suddenly became unclear, and then changed the topic, because some wounds never fully go away. They only know how to hide behind calmness and being professional. Next is Joni Mitchell, the queen of being effortlessly cool, to the world 2 symbols of women's art. But underneath, there was fierce competition disguised as mutual respect. Carly once admired Joni's amazing songwriting ability, how she could turn pain into poetry and make sense out of confusion. However, admiration changed to a quiet disappointment when they worked together in a studio in the mid-70s. Joni arrived distant, with her arms crossed, and quickly started making comments. She said Carly's voice was pretty, but not rough, and then said she was singing, like she was still scared of getting hurt. Carly, who is very sensitive and always looking for connection through her art, felt it like a sharp pain in her side. The words echoed more strongly than any musical note. She admired Joni, but was treated like a student asking for approval. Their relationship never improved. At industry events, they stayed apart, smiles stiff, and eyes rarely making contact. There was no explosion, no dramatic break, just tension that was intense, unspoken, and unresolved. What could have been a strong friendship, a beautiful sisterhood, turned into a cold silence. Carly once said, "There are women you support, and women you learn to stay away from." She never mentioned Joni's name, but everyone was aware. When she sang about women who used their intelligence as a weapon, those around her claimed they could sense Joni's presence in every note. It starts with the most well-known rivalry, War and Betty. Yes, the topic of that song. Their relationship was intense but short-lived. Attraction, enthusiasm, trickery. Warren was charming and captivating, but also very selfish. Carly was captivated by his charm, believing she had found someone who understood her, not just what people saw on the surface. Tot un breve momento si sintió real. Candlelit dinners, shared dreams, laughter filling hotel rooms. Pero no duró. The lies came quickly, like a storm that never stopped. Otras mujeres, medias verdad, acts of disappearing. Retiro emotional. Carly tried to believe that she could be enough, but when she finally recognized the truth, her heartbreak became something colder, anger. She wrote, "You're so vain," not just to insult him, but to keep her dignity, to turn her pain into something lasting. It was a protest, a hurt expressed through music. Even years later, she acknowledges that he realizes it's about him. The pain never completely went away, and neither did the anger. Some betrayals never go away, even as time passes. They simply look for new verses to disturb. And then came the critic, disguised as a poet, Bob Dylan. They worked together for a short time. Carly felt excited and hopeful. Dylan was a legend, a voice she admired while growing up. She arrived at the session excited, open-minded, and ready to make something extraordinary. But Dylan showed up late, said a half-hearted hello, and mumbled during rehearsals, as if he didn't care. He ignored her comments completely, interrupted her while she was speaking, and hardly made eye contact. It was not only unprofessional, it was humiliating. He treated her like a warm-up act, not as an equal. Carly, who had based her career on being open about her feelings, faced a barrier of indifference. She left the session early, with tears hidden by her sunglasses and her confidence hurt. No fu solo il rechazo. It was the lack of care that hurt. He did not argue. He did not fight. Él simplemente ignoró. Years later, when asked about Dylan, she replied, "We write different kinds of truths, pero los que estaban cerca de él lo sabían." She never forgave him for making her feel invisible. That one session was a turning point, a moment when idol worship ended, and was replaced by something more intense. Disappointment, mixed with a loss of faith, and the ongoing sadness of realizing that sometimes, your heroes don't just fail, they push you away, just like that. Next, we have the unpredictable David Lee Roth from the 80s scene. It sounds crazy just to think about, but things got really bad when Carly Simon and Van Halen's flashy lead singer met at a charity event on TV. What was meant to be a night of togetherness and fun quickly turned into an event that Carly didn't expect. Roth, in front of a live audience, made rude jokes about Carly, making fun of her songs, her age, and even her appearance. He walked confidently on stage, laughing at his own jokes, while Carly remained still, her composure the only defense she had. She smiled nicely since the cameras were on, but inside she was falling apart. Behind the scenes, she cried hard, her makeup was smudged, and her dignity was shattered. It wasn't just rude, it was embarrassing. She later referred to it as a public shaming, presented as rock and roll, a moment that showed how easily women in music could be turned into jokes by louder, more aggressive men. It reopened old wounds she believed had healed, the ones from board meetings where she wasn't taken seriously, interviews where her skills were overlooked, and stages where she was noticed more than valued. What hurt the most wasn't the insult. It was the laughter, the clapping, and the fact that nobody intervened. In the days that came after, Carly stayed away from several public events. Esa noche, ella escribió en su diario, que ser fuerte en el escenario, no es lo mismo que estar a salvo. After that night, Carly wouldn't go to any events where Roth was. No era un rencor. It was a limit. Sometimes, the strongest anger isn't noisy. Está en calma. It's a closed door, a silent promise to never be small or insignificant in someone else's circus again. And finally, the one that hurt the most was James Taylor. They were meant for each other, partners in music, in marriage, and in suffering. Their voices mixed together like threads in the same fabric, his soft smoky voice blending with her clear and delicate tone. They created ballads that seemed like love letters to the world, but beneath the beauty was disorder. James's struggles with addiction, fame, and loyalty became a heavy weight for Carly. She watched the man she loved change, fade away emotionally, and come back as someone she hardly recognized. There were nights he stayed away, days when there was no talking, and times when his music expressed more than he could in person. She stayed by his side longer than many people would, because of love, loyalty, and the hope that her husband would come back. But with every relapse, every betrayal, and every broken promise, a part of her started to disappear. The woman who sang about strength and heartbreak began to experience both at the same time. Their divorce was quiet, but harsh, gradually falling apart instead of ending sharply. There were no loud arguments, or gossip headlines, just being apart, hurt, and a quiet end to closeness. Even now, when she sings about heartache, his presence remains. You can hear it in the shake of her voice, and in the lyrics that almost mention him by name. She never says bad things about him in public, because her songs already tell the story. They share a different story, of love that changed to sadness, then to rage, and finally to memories. A ghost that still sits in the back row while she plays, softly clapping for the woman who outlived him. Carly Simon sang about being vulnerable, that she experienced betrayal in her life. Each of these musicians impacted not only her career, but also her spirit. Their names might have disappeared from the news, but they are still present in her lyrics, hidden as metaphors, shadows, and incomplete chords. Some artists shout out their suffering. Carly said hers quietly, "No por debilidad, sino por fortaleza. Su arte no era venganza, era supervivencia." With every song, she put herself back together, even though some parts were gone. Although she doesn't often mention them directly, their influence is felt in her poems, in the pauses she takes between lines, and in the melodies that lower just before the chorus. You can sense it in the pain she doesn't try to hide, in the moments that almost rise, in the lyrics that pause on some words, as if they still cause pain to say. Carly Simon expresses her anger not by shouting but by singing it in a high pitch, in a harmonious and emotional way. Her voice turned into a space for sorrow to roam freely, where anger could express itself without holding back. If you listen carefully, you can still hear it in every soft piano note, and every unfinished harmony, in every pause between the lines that expresses more than any words could.